What if proving your love meant making a choice that felt just plain wrong? A choice that felt less like a promise and more like a test? Well, we're about to dive into a story that starts with exactly that. A single cup, a mysterious red drink, and a decision that could be the difference between a fairy tale wedding and an absolute nightmare. Just imagine hearing those words. That's not a request, it's a threat. You're holding this clay cup, and inside is this thick, murky liquid that just smells like dirt. Your future mother-in-law is staring a hole through you, and your fiancé, he's just staring at the floor. I mean, the pressure in that room must have been unbelievable. And that's the big question, right? Why would anyone have to go through this? Today, we're going to unpack how a picture-perfect romance can actually be hiding a terrifying trap, and how something people call tradition can be twisted into a weapon. Because trust me, behind this one impossible choice, there's a much, much darker secret. Okay, but before we get to the nightmare part, you have to understand the dream. Because the most effective traps, well, they're always disguised as something beautiful, something you want so badly to believe in. So let's take a look at how this all started. So let's meet Tamara. She is smart, she's successful. In fact, she's the first person in her entire family to graduate from university. She's a sharp accountant in a big city, building a life that her mother, who sold vegetables at a market, could only have dreamed of for her. And, like a lot of us, she's about to fall head over heels in love. And then in walks Kennedy. He is literally everything you'd see in a movie. Charming, good-looking, and super generous. He even had this pet name for her, Mahogany Prince, and he was always buying her these incredible gifts. It felt like a total fairy tale, and for a little while, it really was. And this is where the perfect picture starts to crack. The love and warmth she felt with Kennedy? Yeah, that was nowhere to be found inside his family's home. The mansion itself was the first huge red flag. It was just cold, imposing, and had none of the joy she felt with him. His mother, Mama Kennedy, she didn't ask about Tamara's hopes, her dreams, or why she loved her son. Nope, the questions were like a checklist. Cold, calculating. This wasn't a conversation, you know? It was more like a business assessment. And that last question about her ability to have children, just chilling. So you're probably wondering, how does someone as smart and capable as Tamara get caught in a situation like this? Well, it happens slowly. It happens with careful psychological games. And it all starts with making abusive behavior seem normal. Now, this is so important to understand. When Tamara told him how uncomfortable she felt, Kennedy didn't step up to protect her. He made excuses for his mother by saying, oh, she's just tough. What he was really saying was, your feelings don't matter as much as her behavior. This is how we are. You need to get used to it. And that right there is the core of the trap. When your partner starts dismissing your gut feelings, when they try to tell you that this alarming behavior is just normal, they're trying to silence your intuition. They're showing you that their family's dysfunction is way more important than your safety. The trap is already being set. So once that psychological groundwork is laid, the manipulation gets worse. It shifts from just emotional pressure to something way more sinister, and it's all disguised as spirituality and family tradition. And that's when they bring in Mama Yi. She's the family's spiritual heavy hitter. With these unsettling milky eyes, she was brought in to make their demands feel like they came from some ancient divine power. This wasn't about what the family wanted anymore. Now it was about destiny. And here it is, the manufactured crisis. It's so clever and so evil. They didn't just disapprove of her. They literally invented a curse in her family history. They created a problem that only they could solve with their special red drink. It backed Tamara into a corner. How could she refuse if it meant saving her future children? So she drank it. She did it to save her wedding, to save her future. But almost immediately after the ceremony, this deep heaviness, as she called it, just settled over her. Her nights were filled with these terrifying nightmares, forests with mocking faces on the trees, and visions of babies turning into smoke right in her arms. Whatever she drank, it had taken hold. Kennedy was over the moon when they found out she was pregnant. But his mother, her reaction was completely different. There was no joy, no warmth. It was just cold satisfaction, like a strategist whose plan was working out perfectly. Her words confirmed Tamara's worst fear. This baby wasn't about a grandchild. It was about an agenda. And this is the moment. The mask doesn't just slip, it's ripped off completely.
Investment. Who calls a baby an investment? It's the moment Tamara realizes the horrifying truth. To them, she wasn't family, she wasn't even a person, she was a vessel, and the baby inside of her was a commodity.
As it turns out, the family's wealth was tied to a dark ritual. It required a sacrifice every single generation to keep their fortune going. Tamara wasn't carrying a child to continue a legacy, she was carrying a child that was meant to be consumed by it. Okay, when you're faced with the truth that horrifying, what on earth do you do? I mean, how do you escape a trap that's not just physical, but spiritual too? Well, thankfully there is a way out. There's a framework for escaping the darkness. First thing she did? Call for backup. Tamara called her own mom, a woman with an incredibly strong faith. Step 2, find an outside authority. They went to a pastor who saw the situation for what it was and wasn't afraid to name it, a dark covenant. And finally, step 3, take decisive action. For them, that meant 3 days of intense prayer and fasting that finally snapped the spiritual chains. And let me tell you, breaking that covenant didn't just set Tamara free. It exposed the darkness for what it was, and the fallout was immediate and it was dramatic. In the middle of the night, right as that spiritual tie was severed, the darkness lashed out. Kennedy called Tamara in a total panic. His mother had just collapsed out of nowhere, screaming Tamara's name over and over. The power that she held over Tamara was gone, and the backlash was very, very real. And then, Kennedy himself gives the final, sickening confession. He lays it all out. He didn't choose her because he loved her strength. He chose her because he thought she was weak. He wasn't looking for a wife. He was looking for someone he could easily control. And her mother's fierce faith? That was a wild card he never saw coming. Tamara walked away from it all with her life and her child, the only things that truly mattered. And just 3 months later, she gave birth to a perfectly healthy, beautiful baby girl. She named her Ife Oluwa, which means the love of God. A perfect name, and a constant reminder that she had won. Tamara's story is it's a terrifying reminder, isn't it? That the most important questions to ask before you commit your life to someone have nothing to do with wedding plans or money. They're about character, they're about integrity, and they're about figuring out whose side your partner is really on. So the question we'll leave you with is this. Before you say I do, are you really willing to see the truth, no matter how ugly it might be?